How did you get to New York City?
My journey to New York was a little crazy. I'm sure everyone's is a little crazy, but mine was unorthodox. So really, my journey started a year before I graduated in college. I was a junior in college, and I wanted to move to New York because I had two very big dreams for being here that I wanted to accomplish. And I had met an acquaintance. It wasn't even a friend. It was someone I had met in passing who had a very had lived out here for a bit of time, and had mentioned in passing that they knew someone who lived out here. And I remember when I was thinking about how I was going to move here, it was a question of how am I going to live there? Where am I going to live?
Yeah.
And so this guy I reached out to him and just asked him, cold text, just said, "Hey, I'm moving to New York. Is there anyone that you might know who could help me get there or find a place to stay?" And he texted me back and said, "No, I don't." And so,
classic.
Yeah. And then I followed up with, "Okay, do you know anyone who does?" And he was finally like, "Okay, I have this old friend of mine who lives in the city. Here's his number. Give him a call. His name's John." And that's the best that I can do for you, basically. And so I cold called this guy.
Wow.
And told him my story, told him why I wanted to come to the city. And to my surprise, he wanted to help me get into the city. And, I was a little skeptical. I was just trying to be careful because I was like, I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
But it was just amazing, how willing he was to help. So at the time I was working a mall job in Sacramento at a store called Fossil. If you remember Fossil watches and things like that.
Yes.
And I had already put in my request to transfer into the city. Didn't know I could do that. And then when I found out I could, I was like, put me in Times Square, because that is exactly where I need to be. I need to be in the center of it all. And I was so fired up. Obviously had never actually been in the city before, just desert kid understanding. I was showing on Google Maps, my parents, I'm going to be right here, right in the middle of Manhattan. Isn't that cool? It's where all the movies are. And so they approved my transfer, and I had a place to work. And, in the meantime that I was trying to finish my schoolwork, this guy, John, called me back and basically said, "Nick, I have some good news and I have some bad news." He's like, "The good news is, I want to help you get here. I thought a lot about it and I want to help you. And I might have a place to have you that might be available for you to live in, if you can." And he said, "The bad news is you would have to move right now."
Wow.
And this was over the summer. I was still trying to graduate and finish I graduated late because I switched to music composition late. And I told him, "Well, John, I'm sorry. I can't just pick up and leave. I have to finish my schoolwork here." And, he in the same breath was just "Well, okay." He goes, "Tell you what," he goes, "this place I own a few bodegas in the city, and I have this place as a backup plan for my employees that can't find housing." And he goes, it's owned by a really nice Indian family. And it's not nice.
Yeah.
He said, it's not nice at all, actually. He goes, but it's cheap. And it would be all in cash. And you would be in the basement of this home on Staten Island.
Oof.
So me not knowing what Staten Island was like, excellent. This is amazing. Like, that's, thank you so much, and I was genuinely very grateful for him finding this place. And he started describing it, and he's like, there's like 4 other guys that live in the basement. You would have your own room. It's like they built like faux walls and a door, but it's like, there's no kitchen. There's one shower, and it's like a shower that was not designed to be in the basement type situation. But there's a sink and a microwave, and that's it. And it's like on the outskirts of Staten Island. So you could catch the bus to get to the ferry, to get to the train, to get to Times Square. And he described that to me, and I was like, okay, dang, well, I said, I'm sorry I can't, fill the spot. It sounds like a great opportunity. And he's like, listen, I want you to be here. I think that you need to be here, and I want to help you get here. I'm going to cover the cost of the place until you arrive. So just finish your school, and you'll have a place when you get here. And I'm like, this guy doesn't know me at all. He has no idea who I am, apart from just a loose connection and like just a couple phone calls, right? But he was true to his word, and I showed up in New York, met him in the middle of Manhattan when I moved here 10 years ago, and we got in a car, and he drove me to Staten Island, and we were talking about the city on the way there, and he brought me to the place, and it was exactly as he described it. It was rough. It was so rough. But the family that lived there on the upper part, they were so nice, but I also couldn't communicate with them because they didn't speak any English.
Yeah.
But the bus stop was actually, thankfully, like right there. And so I would commute about an hour and a half between those 3 different methods to a part-time job working retail in the middle of Times Square. So that was my start to New York. And it was like, it was a lot. I remember coming home and like seeing mice crawl into the walls. Like it was crazy. So I slept on the ground for my first few weeks there, and like worked. I was so excited to be in New York that I eventually outsold all of my coworkers at Fossil, and they tried to promote me pretty quickly. But when I first moved here, one of my goals was to get a job at the Juilliard bookstore. It's the only place in New York to this day that has printed music that you can go and pick off the shelf and buy. And I thought, man, if one of my goals is to study at that school, I have so much work to do to catch up to where I need to be. And that is like the perfect environment, because I can be immersed in like the repertoire is the fancy word for it, understanding like what musicians are playing what pieces, and understanding, what are the important works of music to musicians in classical music. But I could also just like read all day, and it was like one of the worst paying jobs ever, but financially, but in other ways, it just was incredible. To this day, I still have people that recognize me from that job.
You said when you got here, you had 2 goals. And I want to get to what those goals are, but do you happen to remember how much that your room cost when you moved here?
Yep. It was $500 cash, which was generous. I think I could have probably asked for less. Yeah, that was, but it was just exactly what I needed to be here. and I was so excited for it. It was rough, but it was like I didn't have a frame of reference otherwise, and I was just I overcame I found it like weirdly fun to have so much immediate like adversity to this adventure. It was just like, oh yeah, this is exactly how it should be. Like, yeah.
And you're up for the challenge.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I remember running along Staten Island, going for a run and just like, seeing the skyline and going, well, actually I couldn't see the skyline quite from where I was at, but I would run to where I could see it. And then I'd be like, yeah, one day I'm going to get in there. I'm going to be living in there. I'm going to get all this done. And every day on the ferry, I miss the ferry so much. That commute, part of my commute, I do miss. Have you ever been on the Staten Island ferry?
As you're talking about this, I've never been to Staten Island. I really need to. I had a guest from Staten Island who I would love to go visit over there sometime, but no, I've never been.
Well, take the ferry.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's free. And it's such, they run every like 25 minutes and it has a great view of like the Statue of Liberty and everything like that. And I remember every morning, because my commute was like an hour and a half, if I missed any one of these pieces, I would be like over an hour late.
Yeah.
Right. And so I would plan to just go into the city every day and just hang out until my shift. And I told people I lived in Manhattan, but slept in Staten Island. But man, that part of it, seeing, like a good transplant, I had Jay-Z in my ears as like the, city skyline was coming up over the horizon on the ferry. And I was just so filled with optimism back then that nothing could stop me. And, the ferry is a special place. It's like the people I've met on that boat, and it's a really special part of that part of my story to me.
Probably a lot of really hungry people.
Oh,
I would imagine, like you were.
Yeah.
What were your two big goals? You said you had two main objectives when you got here of what you wanted to achieve. What were those? It
was to study music composition for my graduate degree at Juilliard. And then use those skills to build an orchestra of people that are homeless in New York City.
I want to go into your music background before New York. Your interest in music composition. When did that come online for you? And I'd love to hear about what you remember from being interested in doing that. And before coming to New York, what you had done to put some fuel on that fire, to begin to grow your skill set, your knowledge, to eventually push your trajectory towards what your objectives were.
Well, my intro to music was my father was a musician in church. So worship leader.
Yeah.
Guitar and singing. And I really didn't understand anything about classical music growing up. And I started really late in terms of how it normally happens, right? Normally, I would be, as a kid, playing piano until my fingers hurt, and by the time I actually enter conservatory, I already know most of the repertoire. Like, that's like easy, But in college, I just started listening to orchestral music because I was inspired by one of my earliest mentors, who was a composer and professor at my school, who was the only one that really came from that world. He had gone and did his doctoral studies at UCSD, and he was the one that really helped me understand like the beauty of it and like why it's interesting. And the more I looked into it, I would, because our school was so small, went to like a little private Christian school in Sacramento. We didn't have any music. There was nothing in our library, and so I had to order these scores from like UCSD, Cal Berkeley, Stanford, and wait for them to come in. And then once they came in, it was like Christmas though.
Wow.
Cause like, I just didn't know what I was looking at, but I would sit down and listen and just go, oh, this is so cool. Like it feels like an alien language that I don't know yet, but I want to know. And like the thought of 100+ people from all walks of life, from all different types of languages, worldviews, spirituality, the thought that 100+ people could create something so beautiful in a moment was just like incredible to me. I was like, I don't know what the craft is to facilitate that, but I want to learn it. And to me, that was being a composer. If I could learn how to write music for people to come together and make music that was incredible, that would be incredibly fulfilling to me. That would be really fulfilling for me. And that's kind of what started it. And I worked outward from there. And eventually I switched my major to composition. And nobody had graduated with a composition emphasis for music in my school up until that point. And so me and this professor, this adjunct faculty member that I took lessons with, he and I kind of built the curriculum a little bit. We kind of built the expectations for the program, and as we went along, and it's also part of the reason why I graduated a little late, but it was amazing. It was so fun to stumble my way through learning how to, write. I remember writing music and having these musicians, from Sacramento come in and, they would donate their time to like work with me at the request of my professor. And like, they would look at what I wrote and they'd be like, you're in college? Like, like you are like, what are we doing here? Do you know what note this is? Like that kind of level. It was bad. But it was important to like, just let myself be a beginner, and I learned through it and I loved it, and I didn't let myself like think that was some kind of, upward ceiling that I couldn't break through. So anyway, that was also the reason why I wanted to work at the bookstore, because I knew I had huge gaps in my learning, and I needed to be just planted in the environment and talk to people who do know these things and learn as much as I can from them. Even if I'm not a student, talk to the students, and so that was my goal.
You had a certainty, it seems like, about this, that this was what you wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Had you ever had anything in your life happen that you had that amount of conviction about? Is that a common trait in your life story where you find a thing and you just go all in? You have this inner knowing that that's what you're supposed to do? Or was this sort of an N of one?
It's funny you asked that, because actually, like before I went to college, and I grew up, all of my friends knew me as like the artist that was drawing and illustrating and wanted to do like comic books. And like my trajectory really was like, I wanted to do like concept art for like video games and movies and stuff, and loved drawing. So much so that my parents they found a drafting table, and like I had that in my room forever. And anyway, that was like my original trajectory. And it was about in high school that I just, for whatever reason, fell in love with music and wanted to learn how to play guitar, and wanted to learn how to sing, and wanted to learn how to do, at the time, be a worship leader like my dad was, right? But when I really found that, it was like, I am not an artist. I'm not a visual artist anymore. Like I'm chasing after this thing. I'm becoming a musician, And so, that's what led me to take guitar lessons back in the day, and applied for the music program at Jessup, my alma mater, and the rest is how it happened. But that's the birth of like, man, there's something about music that I just need to go investigate. And that is very similar to me discovering classical music. It was
with a real level of clarity, it sounds like.
Oh yeah. And I remember like I had friends that kind of, I could feel this like jealousy about that clarity. Especially growing up in like a small town. People don't like have clear dreams like that a lot of the time, you know. It was, and so for me to be really clear and just decisive and be like, nope, I'm doing this and I'm going here and I'm deciding now. And there's no, you know, looking back, I wish I had thought more about which college, where I was going and all of that. But yeah.
How do you explain that clarity? Do you think that is just something that you recognized, you summoned yourself? It's a mystery. Where do you come down on that?
It is a mystery. I think it is mysterious in its own right. Like, I think if I knew the answer to this, like I would be, you know, I feel like I would be, well, I wouldn't have to work anymore. You know, like I feel like everybody wants to know that, like why, what is that thing? And honestly, I think the best way I can describe it is describing what it's not, which is it's not a perfect straight line where I don't have doubts, where I don't have insecurities, where I don't have failings even. You know, it's like acting in spite of those things that you feel.
Like the energy is there. Yeah. Like there's an enduring energy. I don't know if that's how you would put it, but.
Yeah, there is a perseverance, that just an undercurrent of perseverance, but ultimately it's like a decision. It's a series of decisions of like, you know, man, I feel like a doubt that I could ever be of that level where I can go and learn music and become successful in music, but I'm going to go anyway. You know, I'm going to apply anyway. I don't like speaking in front of people. I don't like performing in front of people. I'm going to try it anyway. It was kind of like this series of decisions that just, it looked, if you zoom out, it looks like a straight line, but if you zoom in, it's all over the place, you know?
Yes.
But it's definitely not like, it does feel like a calling. Feels like this is what I was meant to do, you know, in some sense. But being human, it definitely feels still like those doubts still exist. This fear still exists. The, you know, all of the lies around that I tell myself sometimes still exist, you know, but it's about like moving forward in spite of those things. I think for me, learning how to do that.
There's still hardship.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's often a great sign. I thought you put it very well when you moved here and you were living in that $500 a month room with mice and roommates and so many modern amenities not being present. And it was like, that wasn't enough to push you. It's almost like kind of bring it on. Yeah. Like that's usually to me a great sign that you're on the right path.
Oh yeah. And I mean like my closest friends, you know, if they listen to this, they're going to laugh because they still will remember to this day when I first met them, like I was like told them my name and then just like told them my whole life story and just told them exactly why I'm here, the dreams that I have. I'm like, I'm going to do this X, Y, Z, these 2 goals, I'm going to do them, you know? And, you know, I remember one of my good friends, I told him the first time I had met him, I am like jumping down the rabbit hole of telling him about my backstory in music, why I feel like I should be here in the city, what I'm going to do. I'm like, I'm going to Juilliard and then I'm going to start this orchestra and like, you just watch, like it's going to be, I'm so excited to be here. And he's like sipping a coffee going, cool. Do you play an instrument? Like, so he goes, do you play piano? And I go, well, not exactly, you know, I like don't, I kind of, I'm learning still. And he told me later that when I told him that, he was just like, he goes, yeah, this kid's not going to make it very long. Give him about 2 weeks. Fast forward years later, and we were all on a rooftop in Manhattan celebrating my acceptance to Juilliard. And it's crazy. Also had my first drink on that rooftop. I told my friends that I wouldn't, because I went to school at a dry campus and I wasn't cool enough to like be invited to the off-campus parties. So I didn't have a single drip of alcohol until I moved here, and waited until I told my friends I was not going to have my first drink until I get accepted to Juilliard. And then I did.
And how did that happen? How did you get in?
Well, I told you I aimed to work at the bookstore.
Yes.
Which is like a really crucial part. I thought if I could just be around, right, and learn who the faculty are, learn who the students are, and like understand what the faculty are looking for in a student, understand like what the expectations are, like what I need to study. And that's apart from like filling in the gaps in my repertoire knowledge, like the actual craft of it. Like, I really truly don't know what it's like to get into an elite school like that. So that was like the turning point was, okay, I applied when I first got here 10 years ago, and I was immediately rejected. Like, not even like, didn't even make it past the first like screening stage. It was like immediate rejection. And I go, okay. And it was after that point that I learned of a, I don't know if they still have it, but there was a rule where an individual can't apply more than twice to each degree level.
Oh, geez.
And I learned of that later after I had already put one shot in, and I was like, dang, are you serious? I didn't think I would be limited to 2. I would have saved it,
Yeah.
But I spent 4 years. I moved here, got the job shortly after I moved here 10 years ago. I spent 4 years working in that bookstore, part-time, along with working other jobs with it. So working multiple jobs, working in the Juilliard store. And in those 4 years, doing exactly what I said, which is like learning the repertoire, reading books about composition, meeting musicians from all over the world, and meeting faculty members, asking them questions, and eventually going full-time at the bookstore, which enabled me to be in the eyes of the school, that enabled me to take lessons in what was called the evening division of Juilliard, like long time ago, which is like night classes for adults. And I could take them for free because I was technically a full-time staff member. That was like huge.
Yeah.
That enabled me to have access to the library. That enabled me to like go in as like a student, actual student, and learn under these people that I had met and known and helped get their textbooks for, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so, and it was in that context that I was able to get, for a composer, you need recordings of your music. That is like the most important thing, is to get your music recorded. And there were classes that I took specifically so I could do that. Orchestration classes and composition classes that were had no other goal but to just practice writing music under guidance and arranging for the orchestra under guidance. And then at the end of it, you would be able to record your work at the school. So through that process is how I met another mentor of mine who heard my music and worked with me on it in the evening division. And he said, I really like your work. I appreciate the effort that you're putting into it, into learning your craft. And let's talk more about what an application to the graduate program would look like. Because he himself had graduated from the school in that same program and was, a full-time faculty member there now. So I looked up to him a lot and still do to this day. Just look back on the lessons that, I would use some of the just the small payment or the small compensation that I was earning, living on Staten Island, but then later finding a crazy, maybe we can loop back around to this, but like I found another crazy living situation in the East Village for $400 a month. So I went down in price, but moved into Manhattan. Yeah, it was crazy. But that enabled me to work these jobs and actually like, have a little bit to put aside for like lessons and stuff. And that preparation over the course of 4 or 5 years in the bookstore, led me to put together finally like a compelling application, to the school. And I was there doing that for so long that the friends that I had made who were in the undergraduate program as like freshmen, at the time when I met them, I saw them go all the way through their whole school process. And then it was their turn. I was suddenly shoulder to shoulder with them getting into the graduate program. And so anyway, getting into the program itself was a really long process. It was really difficult. And at that point, I felt prepared to put forward an actually compelling application. So anyway, all of that happened. And I finally got admitted.
Wow.
In 2019, right before the pandemic.
Did you have reasonably high confidence by that point that was going to happen?
Yes. Yeah. I was like honestly, I was such a nervous wreck when I was waiting to hear back.
Oh, sure.
I was actually put on the wait list, initially. And, I'm not quite sure what transpired behind, the mechanisms of it, but I got taken off the wait list and accepted. And, during that period of time where I was waiting to hear back about like a final placement, and the news of whether I was admitted, I was so nervous. I mean, I was just, you can imagine, I mean, that by that point I was 5 or 6 years in to living here. And this was the whole reason, like the second dream doesn't happen without this, is what I felt, is like, I need to be able to be in this room with these people to build this. And that was just, I felt very strongly about that. Mm. And so I was kind of really in the middle of trying to, I was sitting in the crossroads, like just right in the intersection of a huge part of my life for weeks on end. Mm. And it was nerve-wracking. But yeah, and then the joy that I had when I did get the news was just, I mean, at that point I was high-fiving the security guards as I was walking into the school, and they all knew what I was trying to do. And they were
Tell me about that day, the moment. I mean, where were you? What happened when you, how did you receive that information?
I remember, well, it was a written letter, and I remember getting it in the mail. And this is when I lived in the East Village. I remember walking up to my place, and I just remember literally crying my eyes out when I opened it, just because it felt so like, wow, that part of that doubt that had been a thorn in my side for the years of trying to aim for this thing. You started too late. I had literally professionals in the industry come into the bookstore, and I would tell them I'm trying to, go for the graduate school. Multiple people. Oh, how old are you? Oh, I don't know, Nick. You're a little too old for that. I mean, I think you're a little too old to be in the graduate program now. And it was just like all of those voices suddenly didn't matter.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best moments of my life, like truly. And at that point I had so many friends that were just like coalescing around and supporting me in this time and like wanted me to get in, that when I got in, the ability to just go and celebrate with everybody was so huge. It was just, it was unlike anything else. And it was just before the pandemic. So that summer of 2019 was just like unreal. It was so great. And then you can imagine, like, as I go in for the pandemic to hit right immediately, in my first semester, it was rough, and Juilliard shut down immediately. In fact, it was probably one of the first institutions to shut down, because of the faculty there is advanced in age, and they wanted to protect them really carefully. Yeah.
To put your admission into context, I don't know if you know these numbers, but you know, for the position you were trying to get at the school, do you know roughly how many people are admitted per year? What the percentages typically are for how likely it is that an applicant is going to get that opportunity?
I actually, not off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
And it's funny because I don't think I could have told you even when I was applying. People told me, I understood that it was very few. The percentage was very low, but I almost didn't want to know the exact number because I didn't want that to distract me. Even to this day, I'm like, I don't know. I know it's very small, but I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for it. And I'm so glad that I spent that time to get in, because what I learned in the process of being in that program was, the people I met are still to this day so incredible. I'm still learning from all of them, watching them like pursue their careers, and like, it's amazing.
How long is the graduate experience?
2 years.
2 years.
Yep.
How did as a craftsman, your skills develop over, I mean, both in the years where you're taking these night classes and then when you actually get into the graduate program? I mean, did you get to a point where you felt like, I belong here, that the quality of my work is getting at least close to what my peers are producing? And again, these are probably the top composers in the world. Certainly some of them.
I struggle to this day with feeling like an outsider to something that I really had no business being a part of. And you know, that feeling is definitely not something that just goes away because I have the degree.
Yeah.
It followed me through the whole, especially at the school when I was going through my training. It was just like, as you said, some of the best composers in the world were studying with me, and having that imposter feeling was so strong. I had to push through it all the time because the music I was hearing was just so cool. It was so intricate. A lot of it was like handwritten, and the faculty members praising a lot of it, and it was a whole other part of it, part of my education. But I kind of used that as motivation to just keep going. And I kept telling myself, like, no, you're not an underdog anymore. Like, you are a peer, and it's time to step into that. And so a lot of it was, learning how to actually play piano finally, addressing my insecurities in other musical ways, like ear training was always really difficult for me. These concepts that like, I don't have like the upbringing backing my ear like a lot of people do. So I struggled so bad with ear training, the exercises and everything. I still work through them to this day to stay sharp and stay on top of it. But yeah, it followed me the whole time, basically, to answer your question.
You said earlier in the conversation you came here with 2 goals. Goal 1 achieved.
Yes.
Goal 2, did that ever deviate, fluctuate, change whatsoever? Was that still, from 2019 until now?
Yeah.
Has that always been the North Star for what post Juilliard you're looking to do?
100%. And I would say the steps in between have changed for sure, especially during the pandemic. I applied for an entrepreneurship grant from the school while I was a student there. And I actually was given and awarded one. And it was a small amount, but it was just enough to get started. And originally the thought was, my friends and I started making these videos during the pandemic to drive viewership to nonprofit organizations, like for their online only fundraisers, because no one was going to them anymore because they couldn't run galas anymore. Yeah. And so donorship was lower, and attendance at their fundraising events was a fraction of what it used to be. And so I got a number of really good friends of mine together to make multidisciplinary content, like video content and music, as like pieces that would draw people to view the live streams. And that was the idea that won me the entrepreneurship grant. And I called that idea That One Ensemble, or TOE. And we did that for a while, and it was really fun. It had a mixture of like spoken word, dance, jazz, and classical composition, and like, or like concert composition, I should say. And it was a really fun moment because I could tell our work was being recognized like internally, especially because of that summer of 2020 being so pivotal in our country. One piece that I did with my friend, who's a spoken word artist, his name is Najib Felix. He wrote an amazing piece when George Floyd was murdered. We did these things as composers where the school would reach out and during the pandemic say, hey, they would kind of commission their composers to write short pieces every week or so. And they would feature them on their YouTube channel. So I got selected for the week, the week that Floyd was murdered, and which was scary because I was like, I'm just like a white guy going to Juilliard, like, but what killed me and what really brought me to tears was to see how deeply this affected my friends who were Black at the school. And like, so I just went to some of them and said, hey, the school there's no like platform for this, for you to create in response to this. Like, I have this composer thing. Do you want to just like collaborate on something together and just make it like a however you feel you want to respond type of thing? And that piece became something called US. And it was just a multidisciplinary, like, spoken word, dance, jazz, concert type amalgamation of different types of music. And so my job as composer was to write music that people would take and improvise with, but enough structure for the other musicians that are in the classical program, that would serve the purpose of the piece. And that piece actually got us, it was reposted on Lincoln Center's social media pages. And like, anyway, that same group of people, I just got really excited about working with them, and I loved making that piece. And so I just kind of emailed them and said, hey, what if we did this but for like other causes too, like other nonprofits trying to do work in our city. Like, and we did this as a thing. It became a thing that we would do. And they all responded and said, let's do it. And so while they were all still in New York, most of them anyway, like we got together and we would write and create. And I had a videographer friend through the school that started working with us and doing like videography of these pieces. And, and then the vision was like, man, if we grow, I was thinking if I can grow this, like the musicians to be, and these artists to be like mentors, then they can start teaching people that I had in mind, like, it'd be amazing to then link this to the dream that I came here to build. Right. So what really happened is after I got out of school, I kept trying to build, but I really needed a job at that point. And I was struggling financially, needed health insurance. Like it was bad. The city was just coming back from the pandemic, and so I sought refuge in the open arms of corporate, and I took a marketing position. An internship is what I thought it was. An internship with this amazing French company that does like high-end wireless speakers, and learned a ton by doing that for years. And that's kind of where the story picks up now. I've just been talking for a very long time, but yeah, I mean, last year they basically laid off the whole US office. So I was unemployed for over a year and a half. And it was in that time, I was always repositioning and building on the side this idea. It was always, as you say, the North Star for what I was doing out here, right? But it was when I got laid off that I need to jump into this and do it, take it seriously, get back on the horse and do this. Because I still care about it very much. And
maybe this is a pure mystery, but why is it that goal number 2, as I heard it, creating music as a composer with 100 people who are homeless, why that goal? Why does that resonate so much with you as being so integral to your life and your objective of what you're trying to do here?
Well, I think I now have like other dreams and aspirations after I achieve this one. But this to me has just been so close to my heart because I really believe, for one, as far as I can tell, I have not been able to find anyone else doing this or building this. So it's never been attempted before. And two, even before I moved here, when I visited New York, it's so clear to anyone who's been in New York, like the talent that exists in people that just happen to find themselves being unhoused. And it's permeated throughout the city, right? And as I started, when I became unemployed, I had a lot of time. And so I started serving more with these organizations that were working with people that are homeless here. And in talking to them, it's amazing the amount of talent that is in this demographic that like is untapped and like completely. A lot of them, I've met a number of people who were classically trained, and they just find themselves in a scenario where they've had to give that up to survive, but they would love, just the idea of coming back to it just brings tears to their eyes, And so the more I've researched it, which is it being like the issue of homelessness, I just see an amazing opportunity, even more than I could see back then when I first moved here. I see such an opportunity to utilize the strengths of music to serve a very specific goal for the city, but also for these people that are experiencing homelessness. And it's something I can easily get passionate about, and I can talk about it for hours and hours and hours. And that's kind of how I know I need to keep working on this. Even throughout when I was working in marketing, it was like, it would always come up, and everyone, whenever I bring it up and tell someone for the first time, they were kind of like, why are you here? You need to be building this. What are you doing? And I said, well, yeah, that'd be great. But also I need to eat and I need to, survive. And I've been doing barely that the whole time I've lived here. Even when I was in marketing, I wasn't getting paid well. So yeah.
To complete goal number 2, I mean, to feel like you had accomplished your mission, are you thinking that would be an individual evening at one of the New York venues with these 100 people? Is this an ongoing collection of musicians that you want to have multiple performances? How are you thinking about what a successful achievement would look like?
I love this question so much. I have this image, like very clear image in my head of being in the audience at Carnegie Hall specifically. And like being able to see these people that I had come to know and like invest in, and bring equipment to and bring training to and bring, like, for some of them, like the first time they've had someone be like, I'm going to bet on you and your future for the long term, not just here's a blanket, have a good day. It's like, I believe in you. To be able to be in the audience and see those people up on the stage and see an audience behind me of people who know how long I've been working on this and know how passionate I am about this. And then you hear in that context, like for me, hearing the music that would come from that concert, it would be like unlike any other kind of music I've ever heard in my life, because it's just, I feel like that music would be coming from a different place than it would be coming from a professional that has been given every opportunity to be professional and do music and do it well. Right. I just think it would be immensely beautiful. And like in a way that is like, it would just be to be able to share that with everybody in that room would be incredible. And to build a organization around that happening more than just once is like, that is a dream. That would be, if I could build that would be amazing. And that's why I am building it. And that's why this past October, when we had our first fundraiser and I got to hand a brand new violin, high quality violin, to our very first orchestra member. Her name's Michaela, incredible person. I got to give her a hug, give her this violin. We got to listen to her story, listen to her describe like why this is so meaningful and beautiful and amazing for her and her journey. And then like also give her access to lessons. And also I found initial funding to be able to pay her a stipend on every 2 weeks so that she doesn't have to feel like, she's sacrificing like a part-time job or something on the side to do this. Oh, the joy is just unbelievable, man. Like it gets me up in the morning. Like I love that idea. And so it's exciting to have our first member and starting to build a model that we can replicate and duplicate multiple times over until we have a full orchestra of people that have come from a very similar place and can exemplify the humanity in a people group that is very often and too often considered especially now, like a problem to put somewhere else. You know, like they are identified by the problem and not as people. And I think music is dignifying. It gives humanity back to people. And because it's such a uniquely human thing. And by building this mechanism that grants that to people that haven't had that in a long time, that is what gets me excited. And it's going to happen. We're going to build it because we are building it. But it's in its very earliest stages, you know.
Tell me about the fundraiser. How did you do it, and what happened?
So we called it. So the orchestra, the organization that I'm building is called That One Ensemble. It's called, or TOE for short, TOE. And so our first fundraiser, fundraiser was in October, and we called it the first one. And it was a celebration of the work that we have done apart from funding up until that point, which was to find Michaela, to source an instrument, to source lessons, to source. I was able to build a board of advisors of incredible people, way smarter than me, way more talented than me. And so by the time we had that fundraiser in October, it was actually in motion. And so the fundraiser was to celebrate the start of this journey. And it was named the first one. The people going had no idea that Michaela was going to be introduced to them until the end. And so it was kind of like, it's the first fundraising event, the first steps for us as an organization, as an orchestra, but also it was celebrating like the first member. And yeah, so it took a lot of time this past year to like get to that moment. I had a lot of help from people on my board. And it somehow came together, but, it was in LIC at this little coffee shop, and that it's called Overflow, NYC. And they opened their doors to have us host. They hosted the fundraiser totally pro bono. It was a huge blessing just out of their kindness and their mission statement for the neighborhood. And so, it was a total success. And had a number of musicians come and perform as well. A string quartet. And then we also had like this jazz house duo, named Stella. So the Dream Quartet and then Stella, is what the artist names were. But, yeah, it was a total success. We were able to raise over $20,000 for.
Damn.
Yeah. And so we're going into this next year going, okay, let's take the first few steps, into actually building this thing.
How did you find Michaela, and what is her story?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to speak for her story. I think that's better told by her. But she came recommended to us through the Bowery Mission. Are you familiar with the Bowery Mission?
Yeah.
So the Bowery Mission is possibly, I believe, the oldest homelessness outreach organization in the city's history. It's been around since the 1800s. And they have a small army of caseworkers that bring people through a program that is a long-term program for people experiencing homelessness to get them out from their context into a stable living situation and into employment. And so in working with them and establishing a partnership with them, their caseworkers are now recommending people to us to train in music. People who are like Michaela, have had musical experience before, are kind of coming out of their situation and are in a place to succeed in a program like TOE. So that's kind of how that happens. And once she was recommended to me, we sat down for an interview, And it was just so clear. I mean, one of the first things she mentioned was how she's so excited to, learn, of course, like learn her instrument. But at the end of it, when she's an established member of the orchestra, being able to mentor other people up from the place that she's been, that was like one of her dreams. I was like, let's do it. Like, it was an easy yes, like easy, just when can you start type situation. So thankfully I told her, now this is just beginning. I don't have like a very established, like you would be the first one. Right. And so I'm going to be learning alongside you. And, is that okay with you? And she was like, I love that. She's like, of course, and I think that attitude, and just like, she represents like the ideal candidate for where we're at right now. And it's been going really well. She's 3 months into her lessons at Kaufman Music Center on the Upper West Side. It was very important that the people who are in the orchestra and in this program are brought into the Upper West Side, and they aren't like taking lessons in the shelter system or something like that. Yeah. Like, that's not what I want. So yeah.
Ideally, you mentioned the amount of money you raised in October of last year. It's now 2026. When are you roughly hoping to have a performance? And I don't know if 100 is the right number. You have one now. How many would you definitively need to be able to put on a performance to your satisfaction?
Well, here's the thing is, when I say 100, it would be amazing to have 100 members who have experienced homelessness, and like they are through the program of TOE, and they're, but a part of this that's really important actually is, it's my goal that for every member that we have, they have a mentor who is a professional, who has been and is currently a professional in the city. So the person they're taking lessons with actually ends up performing with them when the time comes. So, and that's actually how an orchestra works. If you're not familiar, the orchestra has what's called a stand partner. Everybody has a stand partner. And it's like 2 by 2 by 2. And for each part of the orchestra, you have what's called a stand partner. So my goal is to have our members' stand partners be professional musicians. It does a few things. It keeps the overall performance standard a little bit higher. Yeah. But it also enables like a certain level of anonymity on stage in case some of our members are not comfortable with just being broadly identified as experiencing homelessness. There's a mixture of professionals and members. And so, and I say professional, but really the goal is to train up professionals who are our members. Like, we will treat them as professionals from day one. But by professionals, I mean like just more experienced musicians, and teachers. So really the number to find is not 100, it's 50? Yeah. Is that fair? Yeah, that's a fair thing to say. Yeah. So, and like, I say 100 to generalize the a basic understanding of the size of a general orchestra, what an orchestra might be, but it varies quite a bit depending on which orchestra it is and, what piece is being performed, all that kind of thing. But the beauty of this is, and also the reason behind the name, is for it to be general. So it is who they are. I'm not ascribing anything to them. I'm not like setting expectations for them to be anything but themselves. And it's that one ensemble. It's like, it could be that we have, less strings than we have winds. And maybe we have 3 flutes and we have a violinist and a cellist. And, as we're building up, it's like maybe the ensemble is a little strange, but that's kind of the beauty of it, is like it can change. It can turn into multiple things. It can be very flexible in its actual manifestation as we grow and develop, because there has to be flexibility in that for people coming out of these circumstances that are very transient, their lives change day to day. There's no stability in a lot of these scenarios. So that flexibility is going to be important going for us.
Yeah.
For us going forward.
And the objective really is, I think you used the word beautiful earlier, is just doing it. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm guessing you're probably open to different models, but it's more to do it and create something beautiful than it is like to give them a job with this new orchestra. Am I fair? Is that fair? A fair assessment of what the real goal is?
Well, the goal is to, like, very practically build an orchestra of these people after equipping them with what they need to succeed, right? On a practical level. But I think more broadly speaking, the goal is to use this as a tool to combat a very real problem that I see, which is there's a issue with the narrative of people experiencing homelessness. Like when I say homeless, you probably think of someone on the train that you saw recently that was acting wild and kind of scary and a little dangerous. And that's like the first image that we think of, right? I think that's a huge issue, both for like society, but also for where funding goes for programs that are trying to solve this problem, not just for those people, but for people like Michaela and and so I think this is a really important way that New Yorkers can see, hey, being homeless actually can happen to anyone. And it doesn't look like that. In fact, there's like a vast majority of people that have found themselves in a place of being unhoused they look more like Michaela, college educated, wrong place at the wrong time, got taken advantage of, and had nowhere else to turn. It could be just a string of bad events that happen all at once, and there's no backup plan. So I think it's that narrative that is the ultimate goal, beyond just the practical. We're training musicians and we're bringing professionals together into an orchestra, right? It's like saying, hey, we're human. These people are human. like there's this language on our website of like bearing witness, like take a look, just like listen to the humanity of these people. Like, how can you see them as anything but like people with potential, right? And so that's like the larger goal. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you do this, I would like to be in the audience.
You will be. I will absolutely invite you, and it's going to be an amazing thing. And it might happen sooner than we think. But to go back to your original question, I don't know. I can't pinpoint when exactly we'd be able to do that, but it just depends on the funding we're able to raise. And if we're able to raise the amount of funding that we can, this is going to be an expensive idea for sure. This is going to be really expensive, but I'm confident we can build it. And I have the professionals behind me to help me build it. And it's going to happen. When, I don't know. But when it does, you get the invite for sure.
I love to close with the same question typically with guests. And you've answered probably already a lot of how you might respond to this. But I like to get guests and artists to talk about how they think about the word success. When you think about that word for yourself as it applies to your personal life, but maybe even more importantly to your career and what you're trying to do in your work, how do you think about that word? If we were to meet in a year or 3 years again, what does a successful life and career look like for you?
It gets more and more difficult to, going back to that idea of these voices that have been trailing me this whole journey. that imposter syndrome. I look at people my age, I'm 32. I look at people my age and they have their 401ks, they have like everything, it seems like there and ready. And they're, married, they have kids on the way. So success for me as I get older, that there is that voice of, man, you don't look like your friend. Like your friend's like 3 steps ahead of you, man. Like, what are you doing? Like success has to be, that's success, but the more I think about it and the more that because I've had a lot of time to think about this, especially being unemployed for the past year and a half, the amount of time or success is to me, when I'm at the end of my life, it's really going to come down to what did I do for other people? Like my dreams of my greatest success, if my dreams are just to have a bunch of fun and have a bunch of money and go live in a really nice place, that's one thing, right? But if I do all of that and I'm at the end of my life and I look back on that, I'm really not going to be proud of that. Like, I think I'm going to be more proud of how did those dreams serve other people, honestly? Like, how many people did I make successful? Like, like how many people did I help bring their dreams to life? Like I see this project, and it's not just a project, but this orchestra is like a way to rehabilitate those dreams that people had cast aside for a long time. So it's like, I think success to me is like, man, if I was able to write beautiful music that celebrates the like perseverance and the joy and the grit that these people have been through, and that they've used to overcome their life circumstances. Like, if I'm able to use my skill set to tell those stories and to help those stories come into life, like that I think is success. That's like getting closer to an idea of what I would view someone as being successful. Right. And yeah, so I think the other stuff as I get older is starting to feel more secondary.
Nick, thank you for doing this.
Of course. Thank you for having me.